Welcome to A Word with Tom Merritt. I'm Tom Merritt, and if you've listened to any of these episodes, you know that the point of this show is to try to explore how we all think of things, because there's way too much information out there. None of us can know all of it, but hopefully these kinds of conversations will help us understand how different people think about different things, how different experts in different areas can take advantage of their knowledge and how you can learn from them. These are the kinds of conversations I had growing up with my grandpa Carl in his front room and my grandma Roxy in her front room. And I got lots of different ways of looking at the world, great conversations, and it was all leading me up to this moment right now. Welcome to the front room, Michael Kinney.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Great to be here.
For today's word is going to be learn. For anyone unfamiliar with you, you have done a lot of instructional content, for lack of a better word, TV, YouTube, etc. Tell people a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so currently I do have a YouTube channel and I create tutorials on video creation. And I've been doing that for about 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But before that, I've had a varied career in television production. I started back in the 80s as a researcher on a science documentary series. So I kind of jumped right into the whole educational content space quite early. And then I sort of progressed over the years doing different programming. And then in the mid-90s, I created a show along with someone else called Inquiring Minds, which was around the time that Bill Nye the Science Guy was on. In fact, Bill Nye was a lead into our show. And so I did sort of the basic questions. Why is the sky blue? Why do chili peppers burn your mouth and stuff like that? And did that for at least 4 or 5 years. And then I just freelanced after that doing different projects. And then I landed on YouTube, and I saw YouTube as a great opportunity to share more educational content. And so that's what I've been doing.
Now, I know there's at least one person in the audience that's shouting Degrassi right now as well. You also played a part in that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like art imitating life. I started on Degrassi back in The Next Generation back in 2001, playing Coach Armstrong, and as well as being the athletics coach and the math teacher, which is hilarious because I wasn't very good at math in school. So those scenes were very interesting as I had to explain quadratic equations.
Did you end up learning some math as part of the?
Yeah, I sort of, that's what bedmass means. Oh, okay, the brackets thing. And so we had consultants and I had to write these equations on the board take after take. And it was just, wow. And so, but I did that for 16 seasons, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Wow. Yeah. That is the fact that any show even goes 16 seasons is crazy to think about.
Yeah. It was an incredible ride. Great, kids to work with. One in particular, you may know, who's known as Drake now.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah. He's a big Raptors fan.
Yeah, he's
right?
He's that guy. I think he makes rap music.
Does some good music too.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Well, back then it was Aubrey Graham, and he was just a kid. He was 15, 16. So it's been amazing to see how his life has developed in his career. And so doing Degrassi was a lot of fun. And the interesting thing, we talk about learn, even though I was an actor on that show, I would see so many different generations of cast would come through. So the kids would come in, they're 15, 16. They're on for a few years. They leave the show. A new crop of kids come in. And I said, this is what a teacher must feel like,
For real.
Having all the, and it kind of grew a bit of an attachment to them as they sort of went through and left. So it was a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about teaching, and not necessarily as the coach, but in your original jobs, in your research jobs, in relating concepts to people on TV and now on YouTube? What is it about it that you like?
It's interesting. I have to sort of re-examine that every so often, and there are a couple things. One has to do with learning and equity. Mm-hmm. And the other has to do with technology. So I love technology. From a young age, I think I was 8, and all the kids for Christmas were asking for, footballs and toys and things. And I wanted a tape recorder with a microphone. And my parents looked at me like, what? Okay. Because I love to create media and create stories with media. So I'd go out into the neighborhood and grab the kids, make up some kind of play or sketch on the fly, and we record it. And that's what I did at 8 years old. So I've had a fondness for using media to create experiences, and in particular, creating learning experiences. And in terms of the equity piece, I think for me going through the school system, I realized later on, as I started doing educational content on television, that, everyone is a genius. Everyone has the potential to be a genius. Mm-hmm. And if you can connect in a way with the learners and the audience, they can learn everything. They can learn anything. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to connect and how to deliver the information. And that took me a decade to kind of develop, working through the different programs that I worked in television on. So that's sort of the equity piece. And I think a lot of times people, particularly when it comes to technology, are so quick to say, well, it's tech, I don't get it. Mm-hmm. I don't understand. It's technical. And it's not true. You just need to have it explained to you in a way that you can understand it.
I agree. And I've thought for a long time that everybody has a talent. So, everybody has the ability to do something very well. And I'm glad you also said, and learn to do other things. But there are certain things that individuals are better at than others. And it's different for different people. And I think that explains why people sometimes think they're not good at something, because they see someone else who is, and that person just may have a natural knack for something, and it makes it easier for them to learn it. When you're creating something like a YouTube video where you don't get to see the class, right? How do you try to balance that so that both those people, you don't know who's good at what, but everybody gets a little something out of that?
A key thing, I get this asked a lot about making my content. And it comes down to one word, really: empathy, right? It's the ability to put yourself in the position of the learner. And that really is the key, and be honest about it. And that really is the key. A lot of instructors, at least in my experience, will sit on high and sort of just throw the information at you, because unfortunately, knowledge is a bit of a commodity, right? It's a method of power that people can have. Something they don't know. And so it's power. And some people don't want to let go of that power. Just going back, when I was doing research in documentaries, I interviewed a lot of scientists and researchers, some of them Nobel Prize winning. And it was always so difficult to get sort of everyday explanations out of them. And I discovered it wasn't so much because they didn't know how to, but they felt like they were somehow devaluing their work by sharing it, making it popular, popularizing it, which can be a bit of a dirty word in some.
I know Stephen Hawking took flack, right, for deeming to step down and try to explain things to us normal humans.
Yeah, and I would have to tell them, I would explain to them that because they're publicly funded, and I would say, well, the people who are funding your work, i.e. the public, would like to know, what you're doing, be interested. And, we're trying to have a more informed public in general, especially when it comes around science, in terms of making policy decisions and other everyday decisions. And they sort of, they realize, well, hey, by sharing it, it actually makes it more valuable and more useful.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I run into, I do a series called Know a Little More, where I try to bridge that gap and say, like, look, whether you're a sysadmin or a newbie, you're hopefully going to get something out of this. One of the things that I will run into is trying to get the nuance right without having to explain the nuance, if that makes any sense, right? Where you're like, I'm going to oversimplify so that you understand it, but don't think that's the be all end all of it, right? And I think, well, I'm sure a lot of those scientists that you were talking to really were trying to hold on to their power dynamic. There's also an element of, for you to understand it at the beginning, I have to make it simpler than it is, but just let me make sure I leave a door open so that when you learn more details, you don't think I was lying to you or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to learning, at least in instruction, one of the big lessons I learned was, and this is born from learning research, we learn new things based on what we already know.
Mm-hmm.
So we need a hook. We need something to hook onto when we're learning something new. And then we build from there. It's kind of like making this connection with your long-term memory, connecting onto that, and then attaching new information onto that. So you have something to sort of latch on to, like a form of scaffolding, as they call it.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I learned. I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Well, and you can't jump to the top of the scaffolding, right? You can't jump right to the building. You've got to lay some bricks at the beginning, but that doesn't mean that's the be all end all of it.
No, exactly. And talking about laying the bricks, the other thing I learned about learning and about instruction was that really good instruction has a narrative to it, has storytelling. Like if you look at my tutorials, you might say, well, where's the story? Well, it is a narrative, right? It's like a cooking show. It's like, here's the thing that we're going to make. We haven't made it yet, but watch how we make it. We're going to do this, and then this happens, and then this, and then finally the climax, the payoff. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
And if you can sort of master creating that narrative and putting it in your learning, it makes it a lot more accessible for people.
There's an element of storytelling that involves making sure that people care about the character, right? So I guess what you're saying is you, as the instructor or the character, people have to care, right?
Actually, yes. You are the supporting character.
Uh-huh.
The main character is the learner.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I learned a long time ago doing educational content is I try to approach it as opposed to the expert talking down, is kind of what they call the guide on the side, kind of like the sidekick, kind of like Watson to Sherlock saying, hey, what about this? And look at this, and maybe have a look at this. And setting them up to be the hero of the whole thing, of the learning.
The person in the chair.
Yes.
Feeding the info to the superhero.
That's right. I'm the guy in the chair with the headset.
How do you like to learn? Because in order to help someone else learn, you obviously have to learn yourself.
Very important. I kind of pride myself in being a lifelong learner. And it's really important if you're going to be I believe, if you're going to be an effective instructor, you need to be a learner, constantly learning. And I think one of the biggest hurdles in learning and then becoming an instructor is learning how you learn. That's the real trick, because not everyone, there's these theories about different learning modalities, and that have proven not to be correct, actually. And as much as we all like to be unique and different, when it comes to our brains and how we learn, we're pretty much it pretty much works the same way with everybody, with some variations. And so what I like to do as a learner is I'm a big picture down to details person. Mm-hmm. I need to see the whole thing. I think it comes from my directing days in television.
Okay, yeah.
Is standing back and seeing the whole thing. What's the relationship between everything?
Uh-huh.
And then drilling down into the details and really important to find the relationships between things. And one of the things I first look for when I'm learning something is the context. What's the context of this? How does this fit in to what I want to do, what I'm trying to do? And I find that really works well when I instruct people, particularly on my YouTube videos, is thinking about the context of what the learner is going to be using that software for, usually.
The why.
The why. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So that's how I learn. I kind of big picture down to details, looking for relationships, looking for patterns.
Do you what do you do when you realize that you learned something, you've known it forever, and you're wrong, and you now have to unlearn it?
You know, that actually is as exciting as learning something new.
It should be, yeah.
Believe it or not, having a belief sort of unwound and like, wow. Stepping back and saying, wow, why did I even, okay, all right, well, let's move on.
But it always worked, but it was wrong.
It was always worked, but it was wrong. But that sort of realization for me is also exciting because you're learning again, right? Yeah.
No, I think more people need to embrace that idea of finding out you were wrong about something is exciting. It means you were always wrong. It's not a problem. You've solved a problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You just didn't know you were wrong before.
Exactly, right? You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah.
I have this sign in my office: failure is success in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. Today, with the hustle culture, I find so many people are afraid to make mistakes, not realizing that's how you learn, is mistakes. And I think it comes down to this misunderstanding between a mistake and failure. Two different things,
mm-hmm.
but a lot of people conflate them, right? A mistake is like, it's a mistake. Didn't work. You try it again. Failure is not doing it at all, really. And I find that people who are afraid to make mistakes, learners at least, end up failing because they don't want to take that chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that a lot. I read my comments in YouTube, and people a lot of times are asking me questions. Well, what if I do this, that, and this? And I'll reply, well, why don't you try it out?
Yeah.
And let me know how it works. Right? They're trying to find, I don't want to make a mistake. I want
mm-hmm.
the answer. Well, you'll learn more and you'll be more effective in the future if you go through the mistakes, right?
Well, how many people do you think do everything perfect the first time? Right? So
yeah.
There's no avoiding making mistakes.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do anything new if you don't make mistakes. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think there is a rational fear of like, okay, I'm fine making small mistakes. I just don't want to make the big mistakes. So I'll flub it a few times as I learn, but I want to get good pretty quick.
Yeah, but I guess it comes down to, in the end, what it is you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to technology and video creation, it's an iterative process by nature. It's gonna be, and that's the one thing that people who are new to video find, a little frustrating, that you're doing things over and over and over again. But that's just the nature of the work. That's how you're just sort of building on what you're doing. And the great thing about technology nowadays in the digital world, as opposed to the analog world when I started my television career, where making a mistake was much more costly
mm-hmm.
when you're using tape and, $2 million
satellite time and
edit suites and, time is really money. Then you had to be you had to be prepared. But nowadays with the technology now, even in something as what's called consumer as iMovie, it has more capability than I had back working in a television station. You're able to think on the fly, change your mind, try things, doesn't work, try something again. So the nature of technology today, you can experiment and play, make mistakes, build on what you're doing until you're happy with the final product.
And there's also, that just made me think of something. There's also the changing nature of what's considered good, what's considered a mistake. You go back into the 70s, and a news presenter was never supposed to stumble, and every question needed to be sharp, and the question ends, and then the answer begins. And these days, I actually had this conversation with one of our video editors who was like, yeah, but if I do that, it'll be a jump cut. And I was like, man, jump cuts are cool now. Jump cuts are a style choice. Like, it's not wrong anymore. It changed.
It took me a while to get used to that.
Yeah, me too.
That was beaten into me. No jump cuts. You got to cut away and continuity and cutting on action. All those rules I learned. And then here it's on YouTube, it's like, whatever, jump cut, continuity. Who cares? 180-degree rule. What's that? Right. It's like, okay. Right. It comes down to the content, right? It comes down to the message becomes important, and how you connect with the camera and how you engage on camera is an important thing.
And that even changes. What is considered to be acceptable on camera behavior has evolved as well, where little mistakes and flubs and ums and ahs, maybe not as horrible as they once were. In fact, sometimes preferable in the audience. Is like, oh, that's they perceive it as genuine.
Yeah, it's about, with online media, I've found it's important. Authenticity is important. And that is the connection, because I remember coming into this space, online media, coming from television, and people were saying, well, you need a crew, and you need to have 3-point lighting. And what are you talking about? You need all this stuff. And I said, no, this is different. This is more personal. This is not like broadcasting where you're kicking it out to, thousands, millions of people. This is somebody watching on a screen. It's a more intimate sort of medium. So we should make it more conversational, make it less formal, make it, like almost like a Zoom conversation in some respects, in order to build that connection, because that's really what's the most important thing, is how you connect with your audience, whether it be through the camera or the microphone, to grab their attention in order to deliver your content.
Do you think that's because of the accessibility of the medium, where when we had just a handful of broadcast networks, we expected that to be perfect because only the few of you got to do it, so you better be good. Whereas now we think it's fake if you're pretending to be a big broadcast network, because we know you're not. So just be who you are. Yeah,
it's the power of scarcity, right? It was, I was on camera, and for me to be on camera back in the late 80s, that was a big deal. I was in my 20s, and, things just came together and it worked out. But I realized at the time how huge a deal that was. And so now, because the technology is so ubiquitous, it is more like we're just talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And how I look at it is, it's a conversation that you can enhance with, some production value.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. I do conversation first, production value second, where when I was in television, it was all about production value. Mm-hmm. Everything was tightly scripted. It was just designed down to every detail. And it's just a different space.
Have you ever gone back and looked at old TV shows, especially like news stuff, and just been struck how stiff it feels it didn't feel that way back then?
And how every announcer sound exactly the same.
Yeah. The exact same pattern from every announcer.
Yeah, and everyone sounded like this, and it was stiff, and you had the microphone, and you didn't have any expression, and it was like, wow. But that was the authoritative style. And now if you were to do that on a YouTube video,
it'd be parody.
If it wasn't a parody, yeah. People would be like, what's going on over here?
Yeah, you have to continually learn and unlearn things like that. You have to keep up.
It was tough for me. I mean, I look at some of my first YouTube videos and I was like, oh, wow. No. It's not public television anymore, Mike. It was just slow, but slow, deliberate, pedantic, because that's how it was, right? That's what I was used to doing.
Yeah. That's what you were trained to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And then it was like, wait a second, this is not television, right? I had to unlearn all that, take what was important, editing, knowing how to edit and make a cut, still important on YouTube. Taking those things that are still relevant and important and leaving the rest, and then developing new skills and kind of combining them together. Mm-hmm. And it's all going to change again. Like, look what's happening with vertical video, TikTok, Reel. Like, that's a whole new thing now. It's like, what? Vertical?
Man, I did a portrait video once on YouTube, and I got lambasted, and now it's, all the rage, right?
Oh yeah. I did a video tutorial on how to take a landscape, traditional landscape video and turn it into vertical. And for the most part, the comments were positive, but I caught heat from some people. Oh, it's vertical video. It's not real video. And it's like, you better get on the train, because this is what's happening.
In the 4x3 days, it's all we had.
Yeah, exactly. We were almost square back then. Didn't have to worry about where we're going to put in the shot. All this space now we have to fill with with background.
Shooting 4:3 safe. You don't have to do that anymore.
No.
But you could shoot vertical safe. My wife worked on a show that was going on to Quibi, and they had to shoot so that it would work in vertical or landscape. Either one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. There's a lot of lines on the viewfinders for the camera for that.
Yeah. It was like a periscope.
Exactly. But vertical video, that's another thing. Talk about learning. I'm learning that now.
Right.
How do I I was doing some YouTube shorts, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I did like a little tutorial in 60 seconds in vertical? And then when I sat down to do it, I thought, what was I thinking? How am I gonna pan across the screen? So I'm like doing all this animation and stuff. It ended up working, but I was learning a whole new way of communicating, using that format.
A whole new vocabulary, right?
Exactly. And you have to be open to learning, because the space changes. It's constantly evolving. There are some basics that will always be the same, but the technology changes, the format changes, the delivery changes, and you have to be ready. You have to sort of be humble enough to say, well, that 16:9 was a good time. Now we gotta do the vertical.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know if evolutionarily we're less prepared for it, because it used to be, you learned to be a baker and then you were a baker until the day you died. But it's hard sometimes to be like, yeah, but I learned how to do landscape, and now you're telling me you got to do vertical. And if you think about it, you're like, and then vertical's going to go away and we'll have to do globular or, something
Circuit,
new.
Oval.
Yeah. Like, well, why am I even bothering to learn anything? Right.
These are our new trapezoid phones. We have to.
But you are going to learn skills that won't be useful in the future, but that's fine, right?
Yeah, because it's less about the actual content you're learning and more about your ability to learn. Mm. And that gets back to what I was saying about learning to learn. It's really important to learn how you learn, so that you're able to not have to start, from scratch when you're learning something new. And if you can discover that, if you can discover how you learn, that is you're at such a great advantage as you move forward, particularly in this space with technology.
Yeah. And the more things you learn too, I think the easier learning new things gets, a lot because of what you're saying about learning how you learn, but also you start to realize, oh, doing this is similar to this other thing I did. And it's not the same, but I can borrow some of the ways I learned how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And apply them in this situation. I don't know how many times over the years I've started something new and realized, oh, well, this is just similar to this other thing that I did.
You start to see the patterns, and they recur. And the other thing I tell people when it comes to technology, because they get frustrated and intimidated, and I remind them, people made these things. Right? People made them. So if you can understand a bit of the thought process that went into creating this, you're going to be ahead of the game in learning how to do it. It's not totally alien.
Right. Just knowing a little bit about how it works, and you don't have to be an electrical engineer, but just kind of knowing the theory of like, oh, well, video has to be processed remotely and then it gets sent to my Apple TV. Just little things like that will help you troubleshoot better, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the old analogy of driving a car, right? you know how to drive a car, but you don't necessarily know how to make a car
Right.
or even repair a car, but you know how to operate it well enough to be able to do what you want to do. And that's really when it comes down to what is your goal, right? I know people who when they're learning something new, like a new piece of software, they will not do anything until they read the entire manual from front to back.
It's old school. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they'll go, I jump in. Okay, I want to make this thing. Let's see how I can make it with this thing. And I'll go and try to figure out the sort of the thinking behind the software, the technology. And then when I hit a bump is when I go to the manual to try to understand.
Yeah. It's different styles, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that, especially with my wife, she is very much a procedural thinker because she's a producer. So that makes sense.
That's my wife too.
And so she's very much like, well, I did these steps and it's not working. And I'm sitting there like, but did you try that thing over there? And she's like, why would I do that? I'm like, because it's going to work. And also because that's how I learn is I'm like, well, what am I missing? What other things are out there? And I'll run into the thing where I'll be having a problem because I'm looking over to the sides and she'll be like, did you do the next step? And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, I guess I could have just followed the rules.
Yeah. My wife's a producer as well, actually. And she's very much linear steps, great organizer. I'm the lateral thinker. I'm, all over the place. We complement each other very well.
Yeah. It works.
And so, and sometimes, it's, if things aren't working when they're supposed to in a linear fashion, she'll get stuck. And then she'll ask. And then I'm always thinking behind the scenes, how's this thing made?
Yeah.
And then look over here. Here's the answer. And so, it's just how we are.
Yeah, it's just different ways of problem solving. And like you say, they're complementary. You need those. And I've learned how to kind of corral myself in certain situations to be more linear, to go forward when I need to. You can learn how to think the other way, when you need to.
Be more sensible.
That's how some very close to me would put it. Yes.
Yes, exactly. It is. But that's, again, it's understanding how you learn. And it's important to be humble. You're talking about unlearning and finding out later things are mistakes. You have to be humble and let go of things in order to learn new things. And another thing is a lot of people take learning or not being able to learn something right away personally. Like we put so much emotional weight on not, understanding something or not doing something right the first time. And it's like, you're not in school. I mean, most of the people I talk to on YouTube aren't in school. You're not being scored. There's no one over your shoulder watching you. Give yourself the space. You have an opportunity to give yourself the space to explore, make mistakes, discover how you learn, and take joy in that process, right? And for me, that is the most valuable part. It's the process.
Yeah.
Right? That's where you get a lot of the satisfaction.
There's something to be said for just stepping away. I mean, it's almost a common advice now is when you're having a problem figuring something out, step away, do something else, clear your brain, and come back. And I think that it's almost like a performance anxiety situation when you're looking over your own shoulder and saying, why aren't you getting that? And when you step away, you get rid of that person over your shoulder.
Yeah, the editor.
Yeah, the internal editor. Yeah.
And, through my career, the editor was very valuable because the editor would sit, the creative would go, okay, let's do this. And the editor would go, well, maybe try this. Okay. And it was very valuable working in a commercial television enterprise. But having to push that person aside, at moments, especially now, which is hilarious. It's crazy. I have we have this technology and freedom. You can, the creator economy, you can, as you can create a living online.
Yeah.
And you have this freedom to try new things and be creative, but it's still tough. It's still tough to unlearn and sort of set aside the editor. And it's a constant battle that you just have to. And if you have techniques like stepping away or, going for a walk or doing something to sort of separate that person, that's great. You need to learn those techniques, but it's not, they'll always come back. Mm-hmm. And it's not even from work. It's from our, school life, that whole institutionalized
education. From inside the house.
Exactly. It's been with us. It's been with us. And so now it's hard to turn it off. And so,
that reminds me of something I learned in search and rescue. They taught us about the horse and the rider. There's the part of you that is just going to do stuff. And if you train it like a horse to do the right stuff, then it's going to do the right stuff most of the time. But then you're the rider. So you can redirect your horse, the part of you that just, does things automatically. And that redirection can be good or bad. And I guess the writer's kind of what we're talking about with the editor here, but that you have to train your horse and also train your writer was what they were saying, because in a panic situation, the rider might freak out and you need to rely on the horse to just get you through because it's trained, or the horse may start to do something wrong because that's your habit, but your rider knows not in this case, and you need to be able to take the reins at that point. Exactly.
And it's a constant, I wouldn't call it conversation, more like a negotiation between the rider and the horse.
Did you have siblings growing up?
Yes. An older brother and a younger sister.
Okay. So with the younger, you were mentioning earlier about the tape recorder and going out. And I did similar things where we would do like fake play-by-play for Commodore 64 baseball games and stuff like that. Did you ever play school?
I don't think I ever played school.
Okay, so you never tried to be the teacher to your younger sister?
Well, yes, but in sort of more of a storytelling, sort of like, character context. We'd be adventurers, and I'd be, the head adventurer, and she'd be the sidekick, and I'd be pointing things out to her, and it was like I'm going to date myself here, the Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom, which we used to watch Sundays back in the day, and so we would imitate that kind of thing out in the backyard. We see squirrels and dogs and cats and.
So you were already a good teacher at an early age, is what that tells me. Because I was sitting my younger brother down in a desk, like we had an old school desk in the garage, and I was like making him a report card.
Oh boy.
Imitating all the wrong things, basically.
Yeah, that wouldn't have gone over well with my sister.
Yeah, it went over fine for a short period of time, and then my brother was done with it.
Yeah. It's funny because I never, even what I do today on YouTube, I don't consider it teaching, and I wouldn't even call myself a teacher.
Yeah.
I just, it's real simple. Someone asked me, so why do you do these, these tutorials on YouTube? Like, it just seems weird. You're an actor and you did all this stuff, and it's like, people in the comments, hey, you're Coach Armstrong. Why are you doing this YouTube channel doing tutorials?
You're like, Coach Armstrong was a teacher too, but yeah.
Exactly. But the thing is really it comes down to, I like learning new things and finding resourceful ways to do things. And when I do that, I get excited and I want to share it.
Yeah.
And so I share it on YouTube, hoping that other people will get value out of it. It's that simple.
I'm going to guess you would probably be finding folks in your neighborhood to tell about if you didn't have YouTube, right? You'd be wanting to show somebody.
Oh, well, yeah. My kids.
Yeah.
My kids are tired of me explaining things to them at the dinner table.
Are they thankful you have YouTube as an outlet?
Yeah. They're like, they show their friends at school, which is pretty hilarious. Yeah, my dad's a YouTuber. and they show, here's a channel. Wow, that's so cool.
Hey, you got some cred. That's good.
Yeah, well. Yeah, I guess. I'm not quite sure if it's, genuine or they're just making fun of me.
You never can tell with kids. Yeah.
But I enjoy sharing new things with people to help them. And also, again, it comes to that empathy piece, helping people, because I know, and that's the thing about learning. It's important to remember what it was like when you didn't know. It's vital. And I remember how it felt, how frustrated I was when I couldn't find the answer. And I was stuck and no one could help me, or, it wasn't presented in a way I could understand.
Yeah, yeah.
And I carry that emotion with me into my work because I don't want my audience to feel that way, right? I don't want the technology to stop them from doing what they want to do. And so realizing, their goals. And so if I can just give them a little help in 8 to 10 minutes to get over that hurdle, it's incredible. I mean, the comments are just so amazing. People are just so thankful. It kind of blows me away every time when I read the comments because I think I'm making my little videos and putting them out there to help people. But people write back and they say, thank you so much. I learned so much. You helped me start my channel. You helped me, make lessons for my kids at school. And it's like, great.
That's the best feeling, right? When someone legitimately tells you like, I didn't understand this and you helped me understand it.
Yeah, it's incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is such a valuable skill and there's such value in it for people. I think we don't take that seriously enough, how important learning is and how valuable a commodity it is for all of us. Right. In terms of just functioning every day and how we, interact with people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone ever stops learning whether they want to or not. I don't think you can. You can slow it down. You can fight it and resist it, or you can welcome it and encourage it. But you're always learning something. Yeah.
Well, it's important to consider and to cherish those little learning moments. Mm-hmm. Right. Those little things
to take advantage of them, to value them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Well, before we wrap up the show, I always like to do a little word game. Are you in? Would you like to participate? Okay.
Sure.
Good. This is called This or That. I'm just going to give you 2 words and you tell me which one you'd pick and why.
Alrighty.
All right. First one, dreams or nightmares?
Nightmares.
Yeah. Wow. And you're the second person to say that. That's interesting. Why?
Nightmares are fascinating because I always want to know what is the root of that. And a lot of times I can sort of connect it to what's going on in my life. And it's fascinating to make those connections. And I just find nightmares more illuminating.
Yeah. They're certainly, I don't know if they're more memorable, but they leave a bigger impression, right?
Yeah, it just leaves me wanting to know more.
Interesting. TVO or CBC? This was submitted by our producer, Jen. Who's in Toronto.
My goodness. TVO or CBC? I would have to say TVO. And I have to say that because I started my career there. I met a lot of great people and worked with a lot of great people. And that's where I really learned a lot. And the people there were so willing to teach. They were so giving in that way. And we were a family at TVO.
It's always about the team. It's always about the people, right?
Yeah, it is.
In a workplace like that.
Exactly. Because this is really, it's media creation is a bit of a collaborative art form. Even if you're working solo, you're still, talking to other creators and, interacting with your viewers and your audience. And so when you have a bunch of people that you can work with who are there to support you and listen to your, complaining and crazy ideas.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can speak to that. I'm not saying you have crazy ideas, but
working
with a team.
When you tell a couple people like, hey, I just want to sit down and use one word and no other preparation for a show. And they say like, yeah, sure, we'll help with that. Yeah, it's gratifying.
Let's see where it goes.
The next one is fast or slow zombies.
Yeah. I think the fast zombies. That's just tough. The slow ones, you could sort of, I know they're relentless and they keep coming, but you can sort of, you can stay ahead of them. But those fast ones, if your head's not on a swivel, they
so
can
it's
come
more,
at you.
You like them because they're more exciting.
Yeah. They're just more, it's almost they're more otherworldly. It's kind of weird because zombies, we think slow, blah, blah, blah. But fast zombies?
Yeah.
Like when that movie 28 Days Later
The emblem of fast zombies.
That scared the crap out of me. I'm like, I said to my wife, if this happens, I had a plan for the slow zombies, honey. But these fast ones, we're done.
See, and that's why a lot of people want to pick the slow zombies, because they're like, at least I can get away from them. I almost, because I've asked this of almost every guest, I feel like there's a doctoral thesis waiting to explain why people pick the different ones there.
I would think the fast zombies would burn out pretty quick though, because
that's true.
I don't know what, their energy source and what's happening. They run hot, but short, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Teaching or acting?
I would say teaching. And the reason for that is I enjoy acting. Acting, it's just two different things. With acting, I've done stage and screen, and you're very much part of a team, and you're a piece of a greater work, and you deliver what you need to deliver to make the whole thing work, and you deliver what you deliver. You do your job, and that's what you concentrate on. With teaching, for me, it's you have, I guess, more control of the entire story, of the entire experience. You can craft it any way you want to. And for me, I like being able to craft the entire experience. I've had great experiences acting.
Yeah.
But, being able to sort of craft that entire experience for an audience, I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Do you get that same thing out of directing as well?
Yeah, directing is, I did a lot of directing, and I'd say that's probably right now my favorite thing to do. And having been an actor, it helps in my directing and knowing the technical side as well, having edited and shot and stuff. But just creating the entire experience, I really enjoy that.
Okay. If we have to take that out so your agent doesn't hear you said teaching, that's fine. Just let me know.
Oh, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
The next one is savory or dessert crepes.
I have to say dessert crepes. I got a bit of a sweet tooth.
Okay.
Like the strawberry, the Nutella.
A little powdered sugar.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Dogs or cats?
I'd have to say dogs. We're on our third dog. Great little dog. He's a rescue from Mexico. And apparently, according to the rescue, they said that a little girl found him living in a landfill. Oh. So I was like, oh.
About how old when you got him?
He was 2.
Okay.
So we've had him for almost 2 years, and he's great. He's a great little dog.
Do you even know what breed he's close to?
He is a cross between, from what we can surmise, a poodle and a Mexican terrier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's quite
meta poodle.
Yeah, he's quite interesting. He can play and run and fetch and do tricks, but he's also a couch potato. Which my wife loves, because our 2 previous dogs were very big. One was a giant schnauzer. It was almost, what was he, 120 pounds?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
36 inches at the shoulder. It was huge.
Played for the Raptors?
Yeah, he was a big boy. So my wife
played for the Argonauts.
My wife likes having my friends and family used to joke, are you going to bring your horse over for Christmas?
Yeah.
But she likes having a lap dog. So
we started with a Rottweiler Shepherd mix.
Ooh.
She was amazing. Best dog ever.
Wow.
And then we added a Border Collie. And then when Django, the Rottweiler Shepherd, passed away, we got a German Shepherd mix. They're all rescues. And the German Shepherd mix, we're like, there's one floppy ear, so there's something in there. And we finally did one of those genetic tests and found out that she is golden, like 30% golden, and the rest is Shepherd.
Yeah, the golden. Yeah, ours was we had a giant schnauzer, and then our second at the same time was a doodle. So she's a
schnauzer and a doodle, giant schnauzer and a doodle. That's amazing. I love that. So. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
No hesitation there. Wow.
Yeah, I was a coffee drinker. I never drank coffee until our second daughter came and we were working in order to function, we had the caffeine. And I was a coffee drinker for a good decade. But then I found that the caffeine was just affecting me. I wasn't getting good sleep and other things. And I just switched back to tea, actually over the last few months. So now I'm a tea drinker.
What kind of tea?
This is a lemon orange blend. It's a herbal tea with
sounds refreshing,
antioxidants and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And I am a huge coffee drinker, so I follow every health beneficial coffee story that comes out. Tea never has a downside story. Coffee always has somebody trying to say there's a downside. Tea seems like it's always positive stuff.
Yeah, it just calms me.
Yeah,
just calms me. Though that caffeine withdrawal was pretty brutal.
It can be.
Advice to your listeners: don't go cold turkey. Don't do that.
Yeah,
wean yourself off.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
Hot or cold?
Cold. I run hot. You can ask my wife. She is always cold. So it's always hilarious in the house during the winter. It's January, it's freezing. I'm like cracking the window in the bedroom beside me. It's like I'm just boiling. She's like freezing with a sweater on top and 2 comforters.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I like the cold. I like this time of year. It's very nice.
Yeah. So you get those middle ground months every once in a while where everybody's happy. This is my last one, only because you referenced it earlier. Bedmas or PEMDAS?
Oh, no. Tom, why do you have to do me like that? I'll say Bedmas because that's the one I know.
They're the same. They're the same thing. It's just a different way of explaining it.
Yes. Yeah.
So Bedmas is the one you mentioned earlier. So that makes sense that you'd go with that.
Yeah, that's
I know we both know, but for anyone else who's listening, this is the order of operations. Is that an acronym? What is that? No, mnemonic. A mnemonic for remembering the orders of operations. And the only difference is one calls them brackets and the other calls them parentheses. That's the B and the P, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they changed it to parentheses because I think I said Bedmas on set and the consultant went,
Well, having just watched the Reddit video of only Coach Armstrong edit.
Really?
That's just you.
I was not aware that was out there.
I'll give you the link.
Oh,
you definitely wrote Bedmas on the chalkboard at one point. So
there you go. Wow. Do your research, Tom. Wow.
I try. I've got good help.
Wow.
Well, Mike, man, thank you so much for doing this. This was really fun.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a great time.
If people want to get to your YouTube channel, follow any of the other stuff you've got going on, where should they go?
Well, you can go to youtube.com/Michael Kinney. And now they have what is it?
The @ symbol thing.
So @ Michael Kinney. And on Twitter, @ Michael Kinney.
All right. Excellent. Thanks to our producers, Jen Cutter, who gave me the link to that Reddit thing, and Anthony Lemos. And thank you for listening to this show and telling your friends about it. You can get an ad-free version of this show with Acast Plus. Click on Access exclusive content at awordpodcast.com. We'll have a word with you next time.